Hello, good people. Welcome to our show. Bad people, welcome to our show. Anyone who wanna learn more about organizing, managing your process, welcome because today we are going to discuss many things about that. I'm so excited to discuss this topic with Joe Blood. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on here as well.
Yeah, big pleasure. I want to learn more about that. I know how it's important, to choose priorities, to have discipline, and many other things, especially today when we have some people who can work remotely, who can work in office, at home. It doesn't matter. Just you need to control and manage the process. Joe, before we start, just tell more about yourself, experience, background, and anything that can help our listeners to learn more about you.
Okay, so my name's Jo. I run a company called Posture People, and we're based down in Brighton in the UK. And we help people sit better at their workstation. So we do workstation assessments, and then we supply the products if people are having sort of problems and they just need a little bit more help and support. And so we've been going now for 18 years. So we've obviously seen so many people in that time. I know. Look at that face. 18 years, and I've got the grey hair to prove it. But effectively, we've seen every shape, every size type of person. We've seen every type of workstation, and sort of one of the things we're really passionate about is actually just making sure that people have the fundamentals of how they need to sit at a workstation so they minimize the risk to their bodies when they're working, really, and it helps them to work better and be more productive when they're sitting and working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. Job. I wanna ask about the study. I read online study about people. 70% of people hate their jobs or unhappy with their jobs. It's a
Yeah.
lot. Now, more than half people hate their jobs. And I remember I had the same experience when I started my journey. That was hard. You know, I think my first job was like a toxic environment for me. Uh, then I changed my job, and of course, I started my entrepreneurial journey. And I remember a few years ago, something happened in my company. We worked on a big project, and I didn't have time to handle the process to analyze how things are going on. And a toxic environment appeal in my company. Yeah, that was hard. Good players left my team, and I wanna ask you about this toxic environment, how to handle the process, how to make people happy. Why 70% of people hate their jobs? Just give any tips about that.
Well, I don't know. And actually, I sort of think if somebody does hate their job, I always say, why stay there? People have got options, and you need to look for an environment which you do enjoy. I think a lot of it comes down to the quality of leadership in companies as well. So if you haven't got a company, if you haven't got managers and leaders who are listening to you, then you don't feel valued being there. So I think a lot of it comes down to, I think a lot of people who are running their own business and have got people working for them need to take responsibility for actually making sure that the people underneath them, that's the wrong word, obviously not underneath them, but the people that are working in their companies are actually happy with what they're doing and they feel like they're contributing as well. And there's lots of things you can do. It seems like if the environment isn't right, you can change the environment. But I think fundamentally, people aren't happy with people. It's not necessarily just down to the environment.
Yeah, I understand that, but anyway, we need to handle the process. I mean, like I have a lot of business owners who can listen this podcast, and they want to know how to encourage people, how to motivate them, and how to make them happy. Because if people are not happy in your companies, that means they're not productive. Now it's hard to go ahead to
Yeah.
overcome competitors to compete. So can you give some tips for business leaders? You mentioned leadership. What we can do to start fixing now? For example, if we have 70% of people are unhappy with their with jobs, so Any tips how to fix this common issue, specifically in companies that can listen to this podcast?
Okay. Oh, I don't know. It's not quite my area of expertise, but I can only say what I do from a business perspective. I make sure that I have regular meetings with everyone who works for Posture People. We listen to them, we take their ideas, and we try and instigate it into the business as well. We also have a lot of transparency about what we're doing so that people feel like they're part of the journey. It's obviously making sure that they have, I suppose, because I'm in this environment, I think actually that people have to make sure that their environment is inspiring as well, and that they're productive when they're working. So they can look at it in terms of saying, right, well, is there something which is making people unhappy? Ask people. I think that's the key, isn't it? Communication. So if they come back and say, well, actually, I'm not comfortable at work, I'm not productive at work, that's where you can do things like actually running workstation assessments to actually see whether or not there's fundamental problems happening. So people aren't sitting correctly, so that's helping to contribute to them not feeling happy at work. So that's probably the tips from my kind of angle that I do it from. But I am passionate in thinking that communication is the key to improving whether people are happy at work or not.
Yeah, I want to ask about your consulting methods. I check out your profile, your company profile, and I see you help with consulting to lead in the right direction. And according to some data, customers implement only 40% of all recommendations. For example, if they pay you like 10K, and 6,000 can be wasted. So it's a lot, So
Yeah.
can you tell your methods how to highlight it's important to do something? For example, you have a list of tips, what we can fix, how to go ahead. So how to tell or transfer importance of these things, and just to lead in the right direction.
Okay, so I suppose what we consult on is how people are sitting at a workstation. So it's a little bit of background. So we'll go in and somebody will have contacted us because they've got a member of staff who's in pain when they're sitting at the desk. So we come along, we'll do the workstation assessment, we'll go through how they're sitting, where the monitors are, where the keyboards are, and then we'll actually look at it and make recommendations. Now, it's very much that when you're sitting working, some of the problems can actually happen because you've formed bad habits over a number of years. So it's not just about people taking up the recommendations in our reports, it's about the individual changing habits as well. And so part of it is we talk a lot about how people can go in, change habits, little tips like reminders about sticking sticky notes on monitors to be able to break bad habits. But there is also a legal obligation for employers to take what we put down in our report, because if they choose to ignore it, then actually that employee can actually turn around in a couple of years' time and say, well, actually it's damaged part of my hand or my wrist or something, and therefore because you didn't follow up on the recommendations, I'm now going to sue you. So part of it is to I think we're in a slightly different position to some other people that are doing consultancy, because there's a legal obligation for employers to actually implement what we're saying. So I've done it myself, where I've paid consultants, where I've kind of, in the best will in the world, I've kind of gone, right, I'm going to implement all these changes, and I haven't done it. So I think part of it is actually, as business owners, you have to set aside the time to finish the project. And it's the same with workstation assessments. If you've got somebody in coming to tell you what's wrong, you actually need to find the time to actually make those changes. So
Yeah, nice, valuable, love it. Okay, Joe, let's talk about how to start. For example, you get a new customer. Let's imagine I become a new customer.
yeah.
So can you tell how to start? I know many my clients, and we are busy. We have no time. We need
Yeah.
to develop our products, innovate products. We need to handle the process, to manage people, to speak with them. So they're busy, many things to do. So can you tell how to find the balance between that company should go ahead and to improve the process that we have in our companies?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think it comes down to actually, again, putting some time aside for these things. So, one of the things that I always do is on a Wednesday afternoon, I dedicate some time to actually doing larger projects to move forward. So, I think it's quite important to map that actually out in your diary and actually have that put onto one side. And then you actually make sure that things happen, things change. Whereas otherwise, you're just going round in circles, really, and not actually moving forward.
Mhm. Uh, I wanna quote your motto. Love your workspace. Can you
Yeah,
tell more about that? How to love it? I can love my mom. I love my dogs, my daughter, sons. But
yeah,
of course, I want to love my workspace. But can you
yeah,
explain how to do it?
yes. Um, I think that comes from a place of the fact that what you don't want to do is feel uncomfortable when you're working. So, part of it is if you can make some small changes, you won't actually find that you feel achy and you feel quite so fed up at the end of the day. So, that's what we want to encourage people to do is actually for them to be able to sit down and kind of go, this is a great space to work. And by just making a few simple changes, you can actually do that.
Mhm. I remember one great book about habits. Atomic Habits. Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
yes.
great
Yeah.
book. Yeah, and what I learned from this book, we can learn. For example, I know that we need to change something, and for example, people can smoke, drink, have these bad habits. I had them as well. I usually fight with them, but I know it's hard to know and to implement. It's quite different. For example, someone knows it's better not to eat junk food, but they still eat,
Yeah.
junk food. They can drink or smoke, many things, and it's hard work to change habits. I mean, like from bad habits to good ones. You mentioned that you need to make these slight changes, but how to stick with them? How to have this discipline that it's new environment and you need to go ahead with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is repetition. So I've read the Atomic Habits book and it's brilliant. And there's another chap, somebody Fogg, that talks about little micro habits. And part of it is to tie a habit into another action. So say, for example, that you want to do 10 press ups every morning. You essentially have to like put your shoes somewhere different and actually put a note by them saying 10 press ups or something, so that you have something that is a kind of reaction and a prompt for you to do it. So one of the things that we do when we talk to people when they're trying to break bad habits at the workstation is that we use those visual cues. So we quite often say to people, so one of the kind of like real problems people have is that they lean into the screen too much. And actually, when you're leaning into the screen, what can happen is that can hurt your lower back. So just to remind people to sit back is what we tend to do is put a post-it note at the top of their monitor saying sit back. And so what we say is actually move that post-it note every now and again so that you can actually visually be prompted and reminded. There's some great pop-up tools on Chrome. I think one's called Posture Minder, where effectively it will flash up a little reminder every 15 minutes. And it's things like that. You need something to be able to remind you to change a habit. There are basic things like sitting at the right height is really, really important, because if you sit too low, it puts more strain onto the shoulders. Whereas that is just a simple check each morning, particularly if you don't have a fixed desk at work or at home, well, at home it's better because effectively you fix the height of your chair. But if you're going into the office and you're in a hot desking environment, you'll be faced with a new chair every day. But all you need to do is actually go in, relax your shoulders, bend your arms at the right angle, and your desk needs to be at the same height as your elbows. So you need to adjust your chair so that you're sitting at the right height. And just that little change will actually mean that your shoulders and your neck are more relaxed during the day.
Yeah, nice. By the way, I think it's better to stay or lay. Two things, because I usually stay, and I remember, I read this information from Dale Carnegie. Yeah, he wrote on his book that the best way, if you want to be productive, you need to have comfortable position, but sitting is not comfortable, and our body was not created to sit. We can stay, we can walk, we can lay, but not sit. So yeah, yeah, I usually stay. It works well. Yeah, I can focus. But if I can't stay, I can take my sofa, and can feel comfortable as well in this position.
You see, standing is equally important as sitting at the right height. So again, you have to make sure that desk is at the right height for you. Otherwise, you're leaning over when you're typing and doing things, and that can put more strain through the back and the shoulders as well. So the kind of optimum position when you're working is to be able to move between sitting and standing, because then your body doesn't get too tired in any one position.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, let's talk about. I mean, like, for example, if we speak about one person, yeah, it works. You can spend time, explain, to create these habits. But how to transfer this data to plus 1,000 people? If it's big company, many people are there, and you want to make them happy. So can you tell your methods? I mean, like, how to analyze all environment, including furniture, everything, that you can see, and to transfer data to 1,000 people?
I think there's a couple of ways of doing that. So everybody should have a workstation assessment. So we've got a great online workstation tool where people can literally go online and fill out a self-assessment. So they're going through and kind of analysing how they're sitting, and then the program will flag up if there's any problems. In terms of getting the information out to everybody, we use YouTube. So we've got lots and lots of instructional videos on our YouTube channel, which is Posture People UK. But we've also do training as well. So in the same way, and that's been one of the huge benefits of COVID, and let's face it, there's not been many benefits, but the fact that everyone's embraced online tutorials and webinars. So you can hold a webinar and get that information out to a lot of people very quickly and allow them to be able to ask questions as well. So we've done a lot of webinars, we've done a lot of online training, and that just allows people to be able to drop in and be able to get that information quickly. But yet, because you've still got it up on the screen, you can still see people up there as well.
Yeah. And what do you think to work in person or online? Do you feel the difference between them? Of course, we live in the modern world. We can call on Zoom, Skype, any other messenger. But sometimes I can feel much better to get information if I have in-person consultancy, when I can see. So can you tell the difference and how you decide this issue?
The gold standard is always in person, isn't it? It's much easier if you've got somebody sitting next to you where you can talk through the issues and be able to see exactly what's going on. But effectively, that has to be done on a one-on-one basis, and it's more expensive. So things like doing it online helps to reduce the cost slightly, but you probably get a slight reduction in service. And then when you do the training to everybody, effectively you're getting that information out, but how much are people absorbing it? So I think it comes down to how serious the issue is. So if you've got somebody that's having a lot of problems when they're working, you're probably better off having it face to face. Whereas somebody that you just need to do a quick check on, then that can be done online. Or if you're trying to tell your whole company how they should be working, then that's where you've got the kind of webinar that actually that forum works really, really well for.
Mhm. I want to ask about personalization. For example, yeah, I can stay. I'm working, I can stay. That's okay for me.
Yeah.
If I tell to stay to my wife, she will tell me, go go to another place. It's
Yeah.
not for me. I don't want to stay. I
Yeah.
like to sit.
Yeah.
If I tell my son, you can stay to do your homework, he will, no, 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 I'm going to play soccer. I'm not interested with that. Leave me. Get away. So I think people are different. We are different. It's okay. We have different cultures, mentality, habits. So can you tell how to personalize experience? Because you mentioned, like it concerns the average data, the average person, but we are different. So can you tell how to analyze personal experience, physical conditions, and to provide the best tips?
I think that comes down to the knowledge of the assessor. So obviously all of our assessors have spent a long time looking at how people are working, talking to various different people with different types of conditions. So it's a little bit like then going to see like a physio or somebody. It's effectively, we've seen this scenario before, so it helps to be able to give that advice. I think although it's personalization, there are kind of categories that people fall into. So very tall people, very small people, very large people, people with lower back problems, people with neck problems. And so although it talked about personalization, there are a lot of things that are in common. So therefore, what's worked for one tall person is very likely to work for the next tall person. But then if it doesn't work, you can tweak it and actually change your advice slightly. But it comes down to sort of having that base knowledge to actually know the products that you're talking about, to know how people should be sitting at the desk. And once you've got that, it's quite easy to apply it.
Mhm. We have introverts, extroverts. That's okay, to be at any position. For example, I read that Bill Gates is introvert, Elon Musk is introvert. Yeah, it's hard to believe it because Elon Musk is
Yeah.
super active, but yeah, according to some data, he's an introvert. But I think some people need to have communication. I check out on your profile about your company that you can help with office design. So we can separate some people and they are comfortable to be alone. Someone needs the company to speak with everyone, to discuss everything. So can you tell how then to organize the process if you are talking about office design? For example, someone can be alone to stay on this place and be productive. Someone want a company to communicate with others, to discuss everything that they have. So tell your tips how to do it.
Well, I think that's going to come down to each individual company. But in essence, what you can look at is the type of characters that you've got within your company. As you say, there's introverts. So say we were looking at some kind of web company, you might have your developers and they're the people that like to be sitting there with their headphones on, they're sort of slouched down in front of the computer and they're very focused. Now, what you need to think about is they're not the ideal group of people to place next to your sales team that are noisy, loud, and like jumping up and down and being very sort of with a load of group of people, because they feed off that energy. So it's then about sorting out the different spaces. Now, a lot of people with hybrid working and hot desking are actually looking at kind of creating zones within a company. So you'll have your kind of quiet zone, which has got lots of soft acoustic absorbing material around it. It's got booths so that people can go and have quiet conversations, but they can't be heard. And then you'll have kind of big communal tables where people can kind of gather around and be mixing and bouncing ideas off each other. But I think the important thing is not necessarily to say, right, you're an introvert, you have to sit here, and you're an extrovert, so you're over here. It's more about creating zones where people are comfortable in and can choose what they want to do. So if they want to do focused work, they can naturally gravitate towards the area that is a quieter area. And then if they want to be with people, then you've got the kind of big communal spaces as well. So it's about creating the different zones within an office. One thing as well is also an important factor is sort of neurodiversity as well. So people with special needs, in terms of how do you make sure they're comfortable with the environment as well. So there is an incredible, there's products now which are pods, which effectively like single booths, but you can go in and the sound is very deadened around you. So they are really, really good for focused work. And also, they can have a huge advantage for somebody with neurodiverse tendencies, because effectively towards the end of the day, they can feel that they've been just a bit too overwhelmed, and actually they can go into one of these pods and actually use it as a kind of decompression area as well, which just allows them to focus back in on the work. So it's the zones, really, making sure you've got different zones within a company.
Yeah, nice, valuable. Job, I want to ask about money. If you are talking about office design to replace some furniture, sometimes it's expensive. But, I know many business owners want to know ROI, return on investment. For example, if it helps to increase productivity, then, they will invest money on that. I mean, like to redesign their office. For example, I always do it in digital. That's part of the process to redesign website, content. But I think we can do it in office as well. But can you share some average data if you have it? I mean, like, for example, if I invest X amount of money, then in the average, according to your experience, we can increase productivity plus 20% or increase sales, anything if you have such numbers.
Yeah, I don't think there's been research done. Somebody might prove me wrong that's listening, but I don't think there's been research done like that on office design, because that's quite hard to quantify. So it's, if you invest this much, you're going to get this much back. It has been applied to things like call centers, where they have put in ergonomic chairs, and actually they can see that the productivity levels went up for the call handlers. And there has been research done by a company called Flock to actually show that more investment in better seating can lead to more productive in call handling, but you need to be able to have that metrics to measure. So it's quite easy to do within call handling, but within a whole office environment, how do you measure productivity? You're probably better to measure it in terms of retention of staff satisfaction, and whether or not people feel happier when they're coming to work. And that would be like a customer satisfaction survey. But I don't know of any surveys off the top of my head where I'm sort of thinking, oh yeah, that's been done and there are these figures. So
yeah, okay.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. I'd have researched it.
Okay, if you have it, just send me.
Yeah,
I will
do.
share with my audience. Okay, Joe, I want to ask about struggle. If I implement something new, it's a struggle, always. Because you need to get out of your comfort zone and think how you can adapt something new and to go ahead with what you have. So can you tell what kind of struggle companies can meet by changing office environment, mindset, and everything to increase happiness on their jobs?
What kind of struggles? So just sorry, I'm not sure I quite understood the question there. So
I mean, like, for example, let me create one struggle. For example, time. I have no time to handle many things, but if it's important to do it, yeah, I will do it. So it's struggle to find time, to implement something new. The second struggle, okay, just randomly like money. I need to find money to invest on that.
Yeah.
The third struggle, so just list some struggles that companies can meet if they wanna change something that they have.
Okay, so I think one of the struggles they have is if they don't change the environment, it could cost them more because, again,
Okay.
we're finding now where people are leaving, aren't they? So you've got sort of, as you say, 70% of people aren't happy in their jobs, so therefore they're more likely to leave. One of the biggest costs to an employer is actually recruiting staff and then training staff up so they're really productive. So what you don't want to be doing is literally having somebody leave after a year because they're not happy. So that's one of the struggles that they can sort of think about and sort of say, well, actually, we need to be able to retain these staff. So what can I look at? In terms of creating for individuals the struggle about changing habits, then effectively we can look at it and sort of say, right, okay, we need to change how we're doing something. And the good, very powerful motivator is that they don't, if somebody's uncomfortable, they've got a powerful reason to actually change that.
Mhm. I wanna ask about your services. Do you help in UK or you help globally? I mean, like US, Canada, other countries.
Just the UK.
Just UK. Okay, you pay
Yeah.
attention to UK. Okay, got it. Yeah, I think it's important to understand mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There are different rules and regulations across the world. So
yeah.
we know the UK regulations. I think a lot of our advice applies to people, so anybody can listen to our advice. And again, this is where things like the YouTube channel, you can have a look at it and you can make the changes yourself. And we're always happy to answer questions from across the world. We just can't supply the assessors or the products. So
Yeah, got it. Okay, Job, let's talk about something that I always do. I made a lot of mistakes, some of them terrible, some slight mistakes, but yeah, I keep doing them because sometimes I don't know how to learn something new. And I think everyone starts from generic strategies, best practices, then we can adapt to think how to implement. So, can you list mistakes that we can avoid? For example, if someone decided to change many things in their companies, uh, can you list mistakes that companies still do, but they can avoid?
ooh, not leaving enough time for you to do something. So make sure you've got the time to do something, and then also communicate it properly as well. I think the worst thing that people can do is just decide they're going to change something, but not actually talk about why they're changing it and actually not have a proper plan in place. So I think that's where things quite often go wrong, is when the plan isn't there and that you haven't really you haven't quite got everybody on board with the plan. You're just trying to sort of force it through in some ways.
Yeah. Joe, I want to ask about one aspect that I think it's important. For example, what I found in my company, I usually cooperate with clients who understand what I do. If they don't, I usually tell them, take my course, go to YouTube, Google, just learn, get the
Yeah.
basic. Because if they understand why we need to create high quality content, how to market, yeah, we can get high results. If they don't, it's hard to get results. It's the same like if you wanna learn, let's imagine French, yeah, you
Mhm.
can find the best tutor online, the best coach. But if you don't want to do it, anybody can
Yeah.
help you. Can you, let's imagine you started today from scratch without any experience, knowledge, skills. It's your first day in this company, in this niche. What will you do? You do today if you start from scratch?
Oh, in my company.
Yeah, yeah. Let's imagine you're hired
Yeah.
into your company.
Okay. So I would. Oh, I don't know. I'd make a plan. I'd make a list. I'm a great list maker. So I'd make a whole list and kind of go, right, okay, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to change. And this is how I would go from here. I think that's it.
Okay. So it's hard to reply to this question. And Joe, I want to ask about the future. It's my final question. I think big companies, many companies think about long strategy. It takes time to implement something, to adapt. And today, technologies are coming fast. We have AI. Uh, Probably we can get augmented reality because Facebook failed to create virtual reality. We'll see how it works, but Apple is going to launch this headphone. Yeah, I don't know, headset. We will get this augmented reality. So many things can change. Can you forecast what kind of future will be and how we can adapt to this possible future?
Oh, I suppose I can only talk about what I think the future of the kind of workplace will be. So the way that the trends are going in my industry is the fact that there is more flexibility. So people are embracing ergonomics. So if we look to the Scandinavian countries, they're about 10 years ahead of us. Whereas things like sit-stand desks are standard there. They've just started coming in here. So I see a reality where people are working and it's fluid between either home or work, but people have got really good setups in both. That you've got dedicated space within people's homes to actually have proper workstations. And actually, a lot of people, maybe the office won't even exist at all. It will just be a space where we go and have big meetings and we're all working at home and then we're all communicating with things like webcams and things like that. I think things would be a little bit sadder if that was the case, because I think particularly younger people need interaction and you learn better when you're in person as opposed to online. But what there might be is that there's kind of stages, so that effectively the older you get, the more time you spend working at home, but the younger you are, you're actually within a kind of more in space training environment, and then you actually leave and then start to progress towards actually working at home full time as well. So I would say that that's it. I don't ever see a place in the future where the office has disappeared completely. I just think it would change a lot as to what we've been used to up until now.
Nice. Awesome. Love it. Job. I'm not familiar with this niche, but I know exactly it's very important. I'm going to learn a lot more about that. I know it's important. If you wanna grow, if you wanna make people happy, you need to do it and think how to implement. It's a big pleasure to get in my show, to learn from you. I love it. I'm going to learn more. That's why I follow you on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
Tell our audience the best way how to keep learning from you, how to reach out to you, how to follow you.
Okay, so best way to follow me is I'm Joe Blood on LinkedIn. Our YouTube channel is probably one of the best ways to follow us because we actually put a lot of videos up there. And if you're having a specific problem at home, send me a message through the YouTube channel and just say, can you please do a video on this? And we'll schedule it in and we'll do it. But we've got lots of information about working at the right height, working whether you're sitting on a gimbal, whether to stand at the right height. So the YouTube channel is a great way to get information. If you want to contact us directly, if you look up our website, posturepeople.co.uk, then you can always send us an email and we will do our very best to help you.
Nice. Guys, you can find all the links to LinkedIn account, to YouTube channel, to the website in the description below. Listen us on Apple, Google, Spotify. Thanks again for your time. Love it. So
Thanks
valuable.
very much.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that people like you can change the average data from 70%. Okay, it's hard to get 0%. Let's be honest. But if we decrease this number, it will be great. Even 1%, even 2%, even a few percent will be great because it's important to be happy. Okay, guys, love you. See you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.